I'd like to call us to order. I am Peaches Peterson, Chair of CDC Board. You have 4 board members that are present, including Mr. Boxley. Before we go into the agenda, I just want to again point out to the audience, that members that are present, that the public comment section is appearing at the end of our agenda and are for non-agenda items. As Mr. Boxley goes through his information, he will take time to ask for questions at the end of each of the presentation he makes. So I just want to make sure that you're clear on that. So I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? We've had approval of adoption of agenda. I need approval for the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have some unfinished business items, which I am going to turn over for Mr. Boxley. He has a number of reports that he wants to give. And please note that at the end of each section, you will be allowed to ask questions. Mr. Boxley?
Thank you. Thank you all for being in attendance this evening, members of the community. And thank you to our board members that are joining us online, Mr. David Ames and Mr. Terry Brubaker. Thank you all for being here. Our first item on our agenda under unfinished business, discussion of the William Hilton Parkway Gateway Corridor and the remaining timeline. For those of you that are not aware, on Friday, June the 28th, Town Council voted to approve municipal consent, which basically allows for the project, the William Hilton Gateway Corridor project, to move forward. The next steps in the process of this project will be the Beaufort County Council will begin a process of adopting the memorandum of understanding between Hilton Head, the town of Hilton Head Island, and the Beaufort County Commission. And as that process takes place, what you'll see is an agenda item on the county commission's agenda by which they will approve or disapprove of that project moving forward. Upon approval, there will be a bit of time by which there will be some value engineering, and the actual design of the project will take place. So we're still quite a ways away from anything related to construction on that particular project. But the goal for today was to provide an update on the process remaining and just make sure that the community was aware of where we stand with that. Any comments from our board?
Do you have a process in place where you'll be formally monitoring that? Do you have timelines?
So I presently do not have a timeline because we're kind of waiting in a holding pattern on Beaufort County. Mm-hmm. But as that information becomes available, we'll be able to put more of a streamlined process together for monitoring that.
I'm going to ask that you let the board know when that occurs so that we can follow up as well. Okay.
Okay. If and I would defer to our board members that are town council members. Are there any comments that you might have that would shed a little bit more light on that process?
You've summed it up pretty well, Mr. Boxley. The only piece that I will add from a process standpoint is the State Department of Transportation obviously has work in front of them way in advance of the rest of the permitting and designing to do, as far as them having to submit to the Federal Highway Administration. So there's a piece there that you will get a response from the feds that will be a part of the discussion as well. No timeline on that. That's obviously out of our hands. So more to come as what I would say. And I too would just encourage Mr. Boxley to keep the board informed along the way. And I guess the only other thing that I would mention in passing is I want to commend Mr. Boxley for his work in the community. This discussion around 278 was very difficult, to say the least. And for those families that are most impacted, there was a lot of angst, there was a lot of questions, and unfortunately, a lot of misunderstanding wrapped around this project. And Mr. Boxley, in a very short period of time, when you really think about it, as far as his arrival here, was able to enter that situation and bring forth information that folks knew to be real information. So I commend him for that. I'm not quite sure where we would have been without him having those opportunities and being so intentional about having those tough conversations. So I commend him again for that, thank him for that. And I'm happy that the board had given him the opportunity to do that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I totally agree with everything you've just said. Thank you, Tom. We owe you a debt of gratitude for that.
My pleasure.
Moving on to the new business.
Any comment from the audience on agenda item unfinished business item number 4? Okay.
Seeing none, you can move on to the new business.
New business, agenda item 5A, discussion regarding our budget for fiscal year 2025. I wanted to make sure as we move forward to be intentional and transparent about the communication related to our expenditures and the way that we are operating. We've been deliberate about our spending as we've ramped up our services. And so if you'll take a look at the actual budget items, we have not spent much money at all. We've been, again, pretty intentional. And the expenditures that we have accrued are really based in expenditures for salary, expenditures for some small expenditures around printing, office supplies, et cetera, knowing that the bulk of our work would be coming as we moved beyond the highway project, and as we were able to formally organize and look at some projects that we have on the books, some that we'll be discussing a little bit later here this evening. But we wanted to make sure that we, as you look at that at the actual line items, and the budget items, we have money set aside in our budget for professional services, and we also have money set aside for our the Stony Improvement Grant. Again, we'll be discussing some of that here in a moment, but just wanted to make sure that we are actively communicating where we stand presently. So are there any questions?
I have a question or a general comment. On page 1, under general contingency,
Yes.
you set aside funds there. Can you define for us what that is?
For general contingency, I wanted to make sure that as we move forward and as we start the process of, again, our agenda item later, as we discuss in the Stony Community Improvement Grant Program, that we would have enough funds, should we run over, as we begin the process of working with property owners, homeowners in the Stony community to begin to mitigate emissions, to mitigate sound, just in case, we didn't budget enough initially, that we would have enough in a contingency. So it's not money that has been spent, not money that I necessarily anticipate spending, but I wanted to make sure that we had that cushion. There's a lot of work to be done. We're talking about a community that has been impacted since the first bridge was built. and there are several needs that exist there. But we also understand, you know, as Councilman Brown mentioned before, there's a process that's going to take place, and it's going to be somewhat of a long process before we get to construction. But by the time we move through design, permitting, et cetera, and actual, you know, shovels in the ground in that area, I want to make sure that we have some funding in place so that we can work on the civil side of everything as well. There are several families, property owners there that need sloping and grading, et cetera, that has been neglected for at least the last 2 highway projects. So we wanted to make sure to provide some level of funding there to begin to make right some of those issues.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
Thomas, what would be a realistic time frame where you begin to define specifics on what the Gullah community and family members want on their property or need on their property?
Thank you. So we have actually begun that process, and we've started to have conversations, you know, as early as December of 2023 related to, you know, driveways, you know, new driveways, you know, we've had conversations related to development and removal of existing structures, you know, creating different opportunities for future land development, highest and best use. So whether that is putting together the pieces, the infrastructure pieces, water line, sewer line upgrades, et cetera, so that families can begin to construct rental units on their property. You know, we've had those conversations. However, you know, the next phase of that, now that we are moving forward, is to begin to get, you know, drill down into the details. So my goal is to move forward with those higher level meetings this fall.
Do you feel as though you have the contacts in the fields of construction, development, and so on, or do you need assistance in identifying them?
I could definitely, you know, use support. I do have some contacts, but I don't, you know, I'm pretty sure that there is a lot that I do not know in that area, given the short amount of time that I've been here. So I will definitely be leaning into you and others in the community to help.
I bring it up because even the board may not have the contacts, and we may have to seek that assistance elsewhere.
Correct. I have been making some contacts though, and I'm confident that we will get there. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
So this is a follow-up to what David just said. At some point, it might be helpful for the board to know specifically what kind of contacts you need and when you need them, so that if we need to provide assistance, we'll know a little bit more about your time frame, the specifics of your time frame.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions from comments?
Yeah, so I'm okay with the obviously previously approved budget and the expenditures thus far. I know that our good Senator Davis has I think another $1 million that's going to be pushed down from the state. I don't know the particulars of that, if that's a grant from a particular department or what. But our strategic plan does speak to us continuing to raise monies. And I'm just putting a plug in tonight that, you know, we put some emphasis on that effort as far as raising additional funds. Obviously, folks are going to want to know what you're going to be spending your funds on. But based on what's in front of us, we will be spending pretty readily as we move forward with some of the issues that we have unpeeled here. So at the appropriate time, Madam Chair, I would ask that we sort of huddle together to talk about future funding and what that looks like and how we accomplish that goal.
Very good comment. And to that point, that is a pathway that I've already started to travel down. We have, to your point, Mr. Senator Davis has been very, very gracious and supportive of our efforts, and has pledged some funds for us for fiscal year 2025 moving forward. And we also are, if you noticed, tomorrow, and this is an agenda item for later, we've got a community partner that we're building a relationship with in TD Bank. And so I'm also in the process of reviewing a couple of different grant opportunities too. So that process is taking place in real time, and more to come on that in the future. But yes, I definitely would appreciate support, guidance, help in that area. We also, again, let's not forget that we have an account with the Community Foundation of the Low Country for individuals to be able to make taxable donations to the CDC to support the work that we do. Thank you.
What other questions do we have from the public on this item or comment? Hearing on, we'll move on to point B,
All right.
wayfinding solution.
So we're moving on to 5B, which is wayfinding. So based on our strategic plan that we approved and adopted earlier this year, the stabilization and preservation of our historic neighborhoods was one of our priorities. We have since released a request for proposals for a solution that will allow us to digitally capture and preserve the culture, the Gullah culture, through a means by which is identified as wayfinding. And what that looks like is utilizing QR codes to be able to enhance the tourism experience in our cultural areas. So if you would imagine walking past, say, the former the Fisherman's Co-op, which is over on Squire Pope Road, and is now identified as a rowing and sailing center. And there was a QR code there that you could scan with your mobile device and be able to pull up articles from 1969 and 1970 that existed in Jet and Ebony magazine, and told the story of how the Fisherman's Co-op rode up the eastern seaboard to the Department of the Department of the Interior, and basically stopped the BASF plant. So being able to utilize technology in the telling of our history is what this RFP is in place to do. This RFP was issued, it opened on June the 14th and closed on July the 11th. We are currently in the process of reviewing those requests for proposals and scoring them, and we anticipate an award of contract the 1st of August. And that's kind of where we are in that process. And I'm really pretty excited about that, about being able to utilize the technology in the cultural preservation of Gullah history. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
I have a comment. I'm one of the reviewers, and each of the applications indicate a different time frame of as regarding as to when they could get this up and running, but it looks like most of them are saying within a 6 to 9 month period of time, which I think is outstanding, to be able to go through and actually hold up your phone and actually go to these points within the Gullah community and hear about the culture and the impact of the culture to the rest of the island. And one of the things that will be utilized that Mr. Boxley did not talk about is the stories that people have, and actual people who live here telling those stories in their own voices, which is really important. Not having an actor tell the story, but actually having folks from our Gullah community that will be identified later telling the stories and the history. I think that makes it very real, and I think it makes it very authentic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a comment.
Yes.
I think one of the traps that we've always seemed to get ourselves into on the island is doing things in isolation of other groups. I've already spoken to Thomas about this. There's, of course, Mitchellville. There are a lot of cultural assets on the community. There's Coastal Discovery Museum. There's the Chamber of Commerce. There are the bike paths. And so I'm encouraging us as a board and Thomas as executive director, try to think of this as a network or a system of education for people who live on the island and people who visit the island. Thank you.
Well said, and I think that's an important point because, for example, you brought up Mitchellville, and I know Mitchellville will be doing the same kind of wayfaring exercise. And I think, Mr. Boxley, are you not in communication with those entities?
I am. I'm in communication with Mitchellville, with Mr. Ward over at Mitchellville, as well as I think that QR code was created by the town, the Department of Cultural Affairs, and so this is a little different than and it's enhanced. It has a few more bells and whistles, if you will, than what I've seen in current existence. So we're talking about augmented reality. We're talking about virtual reality components as well. So, but to your point, I agree that that there is some cross organization work that can be done to make sure that we're maximizing the potential of these tools.
And I know that one of the concerns, Mr. Boxley, is involving our youth on the island in doing these kinds of things. And I believe that this is an opportunity for our youth to be up in front and center in this, in establishing this and helping with it. I think it could be something that could be done in conjunction with the high schools, the local high schools, and their students. So I'm really excited about that component of it.
It absolutely is a very youth-centric project, and that young people that they navigate in and manage, maintain, and live in that digital world. And so I think that this is an opportunity to tie them directly back to the culture. So I'm excited about it.
What questions or comments do we have from our community? Any? Hearing none, then we will go on to.
I got one.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I'm happy to hear that the development of the content within the program is going to be more so grassroots than anything. I think that's very important. How many responses did we get?
It was 11, I think.
Good. Okay. Sorry, Madam Chair. I'm always down the street a little bit.
That's okay with me.
It seems as if this program will help to support some of the efforts that the town has been having with our designated marketing organization, as far as highlighting more than beach, golf, tennis, and so on Hilton Head. And the chamber DMO on a regular basis makes presentations or reports to town council as far as those efforts are concerned. One of the things that they mentioned at their last report was that they are starting to get more hits around arts and culture, in particular the Gullah aspect. But being able to hand that off to someone as far as a place to go once a visitor has recognized that this exists in our area has been somewhat of a challenge, right? I'm proposing at the appropriate time that we ask the question of our DMO as to what this partnership is going to look like. Okay. As an example, when we start to talk about our environmental stewardship and the chamber taking a lead in telling that story, we have places, organizations like the Sea Turtle Patrol. There is a bound partnership there to make sure that that story is told and make sure that our visitors are educated as they come to Hilton Head when it comes to our protection of sea turtles. And that's great. With the mission of the CDC and the mission of the DMO, I just see a very important partnership on the horizon there. And I'd like to see us evolve into that as we move these type of programs along.
Thank you.
I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah, I think that we do have, for lack of a better analogy, meat on the bone with our DMO, and not only in this area, but as we look at marketing for Gullah businesses, as we look at to your point, being able to as tourists are planning their trips, to be able to be out on the front side of that with the arts and culture of the Gullah community also being marketed at a high level. So I think that there are several opportunities that exist there. The power of this technological piece is the ability to also, as tourists return home, to be able to like physically show, their friends and family what they experienced while they were here in real time, through their devices. So I think there's more to come that's pretty exciting in that area.
Any other comments or questions from the board members? Any questions or comments from the community on this item? Yes, ma'am. Can you come up and identify yourself, please? Just for our records.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Valencia, and I represent the Women's Association here, the Nature Exploration Group. I think I really like the QR code program because we have had a lot of trouble getting connected to the community. I hope that you would include music from the young people in each of these QR code locations, because I think the Gullah music is so much a part of the culture, and it's something that I deeply appreciate when I hear things. So I just ask that we look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a wonderful idea.
Thank you for that.
What other comments or questions do we have? Then we'll move on to item 5C, which is the Stony Community Impact Grant.
All right, so item 5C, Stony Community Impact. As part of our strategic plan, we further committed and identified the need to support the Stony community through the highway project and the impacts that it has had in the past. If you remember, we started discussing this within 3 to 4 weeks of my arrival here during the strategic planning process, as we discussed our goals and objectives for this current year. And it was identified that Stony had been significantly impacted, and regardless of the outcome of the highway expansion project that has been proposed, and town council agreed to move forward, that there still needed to be work done in the Stony community to improve that. So what this represents, this agenda item represents, is making sure that we're moving forward, or just moving forward in the appropriate way to support the homeowners, property owners in the Stony community that have been negatively impacted by by past and previous rounds of highway expansion. We've heard through the process of the highway expansion of the impacts, whether that is the grading and drainage, whether that is emissions, whether that is noise. We've heard from the family members directly. What we thought would be a good move forward immediately would be to work with the Stony community members, the family members that have an immediate need that won't be impacted by the future civil work, etc., of the highway as it moves forward. So that being emissions, that being noise mitigation, those are some low-hanging fruits, if you will, that we can begin to work on here in the next 60 to 90 days to begin to help to repair some of the things that have been done. So I'll be working over I've already began the process again of moving this piece forward, working directly with our procurement department at the town to make sure that we are putting together an appropriate package, application package for the families that we'll be supporting. We also would love to be able to, again, to get this program up and running for immediate impacts, that something that can be done immediately for the community that has been suffering through this for years. So any questions?
Have you specifically identified those families and what their needs are? I think you have, but I just need to.
I have identified at least 6, and we are, once word spreads, we'll have others that will also, be looking at how we might be able to support them.
Other questions or comments from board members?
Yep, Madam Chair, Mr. Boxley is touching on some of the immediate factors that could improve quality of life in that area. I want to dive a little bit deeper for the board's sake. As we were having our deliberations at council around the 278 project, we were referencing the Stony Initiative Plan that was adopted in 2003. And I got a comment from a community member asking me if that plan was still relevant. Now, I'm not quite sure what the intent of the question was, but my response was that there are still property owners and family members that are living in that area that participated in that plan. And there are a few key components that were missing as far as implementation of that plan. One is political will, and let's face that as a fact. And the other is sort of the expertise within the family units to execute as well. So I know that Mr. Boxley has been having these conversations around long-term planning and you have spoken to some of the immediate fixes. But I just want the board to understand and the community at large to understand that because of that lack of expertise within the family units is why we have not seen movement as well. So these grant programs will also help to support them being able to move forward with bringing expertise and resources to the table. I think it's important for us to articulate that publicly because, as I've said in the past, we tend to try to put the folks in that community in one box and think they all want the same thing, and it's not the case. So helping them to move through those discussions with folks that have done it before, with folks that know some of the pitfalls and opportunities is going to further that community. Again, I'm applaud Mr. Boxey for his efforts, but I want to say that piece out loud.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. And you're exactly right. There are several pieces. I was having a conversation earlier about heirs property. I had the opportunity to participate in a heirs property related dive. And you know, there are so many components when we begin to speak of how does a landowner, how does a family begin to move into highest and best utilization of their property. So some of what we can provide looks like some heirs property research, support for that. Some of it looks like, support for land appraisals and different components that are necessary to move down that pathway to highest and best use, should the family desire that, or if the family is just desires to maintain homestead, then making sure that we are supporting those efforts and desires as well. Because it's not a one size fits all or a one answer for every family situation at all.
Thank you, Mr. Boxer. You have a good understanding of what's going on. We appreciate that. What other comments or questions do we have from board members? Any questions or comments from the public on this item? Hearing none, we will go on to the public comment area. Have we received?
Yeah, we got one more.
Sorry.
Item D.
Sorry, I forgot that one.
It's okay.
Go on.
Item D, 5D. And this is, this is one that reflects directly to, and everything that we do is directly tied to our strategic plan as well as the strategic plan of the town of Hilton Head Island. And so this particular agenda item is related to our upcoming financial education seminar series that begins tomorrow. So I would like to make sure and invite all of our community members to be in attendance there as well. Tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. at the Island Rec Center, we will kick off our community education series. And so we identified in our strategic plan access to capital as something that was important for us to work towards with our community. So, and I'd like to thank our partners in the Island Rec Center for providing us a location, as well as our partnership with TD Bank that will be facilitating our series. And again, we've got a series of 5 workshops. Each of them will be in the same location at the same time, 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Tomorrow, July the 25th. Then our next session, August the 13th, September the 10th, October the 8th, and November the 12th. But our goal through this is to increase access to capital for the community and for potentially development of the potential development of small businesses. And so if you take a look at the topics, tomorrow's topic is applying for financing. In August, we've got business operations, day-to-day business operations. Then we've got, again, access to capital, small business lines of credit, and then commercial lending. And so what we want to be able to do is to provide a knowledge base as well as a connectivity to a lending institution that exists within the community that can provide some support and to continue to build upon that relationship.
I think that's outstanding. Comments or questions from our board?
I do have a thought. So we come up with great ideas to educate people, and we have the meetings and very few people show up. I have no idea what you think is going to happen tomorrow, but I'm thinking that rather than it's just being a lecture, add to it an actual practical aspect where you're actually giving these people the opportunity to go for a loan. In other words, make it as real as possible, so they go into the community and say, "This is amazing what I am now able to do," rather than just a lecture. So it's I don't know if I'm communicating that, but Thomas, to the extent that you can make it a win for the people who participate, I think it would help in the marketing of the program, step 2 and 3.
Thank you.
I want to add a little bit more to Mr. Ames' thought process there. You have to keep very, very front of mind that folks within the Gullah community are going to be very leery with taking first steps. Just because there's a trust issue that continues to linger. What I'm suggesting, along with Mr. Ames' comment, is that those that do show up, we capture their information in a way that we will go start to have some of those tabletop conversations that Mr. Boxley has been having with folks in the Stony community. To me, we're potentially scratching the surface here, but I think we are opening doors for Mr. Boxley to start to educate as to what the possibilities are and how the CDC can help move you along. Okay. So I just strongly encourage that we capture that information while we're there and set some maybe follow-ups within homes, because I think folks are most comfortable when you're having these type of conversations with them and their family versus in a public setting. So that would be a charge that I would ask the board to give Mr. Boxley through this effort.
I agree with what you both have said, but to add on to it, we could even, to take Mr. Ames' thought further and Mr. Brown's thought further, they could be ambassadors in the community once they go through the training to really talk through in some kind of marketing effort what has happened, what their experience was and what has happened. Additionally, have we set up video recordings for these sessions, or can we do that? Is that possible?
That's something that we definitely are working towards for the August session. We don't currently have that capability, but that's a conversation that I was actually having earlier this week about making sure that we can, capture these sessions. I mean, it's going to require a little bit of coordination between TD Bank and our organization, but the mechanism for capturing participant information is already in place. In regards to our marketing efforts, our wonderful communications team has been extremely supportive and walking in lockstep with us as we work to get the word out. And I'm extremely confident about our ability to move forward, not only in the development of small business and the supports for small business, but also through the development of to your point, Madam Chair, ambassadors that we can lean upon to go out and tell the story as well. So I think that we spent a significant amount of time working on one issue, right? And now we're able to move into some other things that I think will be extremely exciting for the community. So I'm having fun with this one.
Let me add one, I think, way that I would like to crystallize it. I think we should be focused on results, and the process gets to results as quickly as possible. So it's not just education; it's we're providing an avenue for results, and I think that is going to sell the rest of the community to participate.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
Very good point. And just so you're aware, at a deeper level, I'm working with some of the executive team with TD Bank as well to be able to provide some of those higher level wins. So more to come on that. I can't speak to it just yet, but more to come on that.
Thank you. This is a very exciting thing.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
We can move past Stony. Just a little bit. What questions or comments do we have from the community on this item? Hearing none, I think we then now are ready to go to public comment. Do we have any forms that were filled out for public comment? Okay. Right. Any public comment, I will just ask in general, since we have a small group. Hearing none, then we are at a point of adjournment. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second on that?
Second.
All right, we are adjourned at 6:40. Thank you very much for your attendance.